Welcome back, everyone, and it is great to be with you for another episode of Record Live. Today, we are joined by Jared, of course, and the wonderful Camilla Scaff, who is the Health Director of the North New South Wales Conference and the Director of a cafe in Newcastle called Food Pharmacy. So, welcome, Camilla. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. It's so good to be here with you both. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's great. So now, Camilla, before we dive into things, we are talking about health today. But first, we would just love to hear a little bit more about yourself. So tell us who you are, what you're passionate about, and yeah, what you like doing in your free time.
Sure. So, I'm Camila. I am originally from Brazil. I've been living now in Newcastle for about 6 years in the Newcastle area. And I originally came here with my husband as missionaries. Like, we just wanted to contribute with the Adventist Church efforts in Australia. It's kind of weird to say that we come to Australia to be missionaries, but that's how we felt called to come here and contribute with whatever we could. And yes, health, it is a big passion of mine. And I've been studying now lifestyle medicine at Avondale University. Pretty much finished with my graduate diploma, and my husband, he came to study his graduate diploma in theology. Originally, we were both working in the areas of finance and investment banking, but we sort of decided that we wanted to have a sabbatical year and do missionary work for 1 or 2 years. And we just ended up staying here and getting jobs and getting busy, having children. And now here we are with two little kids, happy living in Australia.
That's
Amazing.
amazing. That's a big switch from sort of the financial industry, the corporate world, into becoming missionaries. It's a big sacrifice and it's a big sort of life change. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey and I guess what prompted you to make that decision?
Sure. Look, it was something that when I met Joseph, it was a dream that both of us has had. Joseph, when I met him, which we've been married now for 7 years, so probably 8.5 years ago when we met, he was just coming to become a Christian, actually, from a very agnostic or atheist background. And he was an economist, and his dad was an economist, and they were very much into the knowledge of things. And so when I met him, I was working with a lot of investment bankers and people that are very secular and didn't have anything with the spirituality or religion. And I just felt that need to be relevant, like to actually be real and authentic with my Christianity to them, from first and foremost. But I think that we didn't have a laid out plan of what we wanted to do. It was more like we had this dream of taking a sabbatical year. And it was actually interesting because we're like, okay, if we get married and if we take one vacation a year to do something, like, when you take a vacation and you go do mission like in the islands or something. So we're like, okay, if we do that, it's going to take us, we made a list of everything we wanted to do, and we realized it was going to take us 20 years if everything went right, like, and obviously that's not going to happen. So we're like, what about we take a whole year and just do the whole thing all at once while we're young and fresh? And so we decided, once we got married, that we're going to do that. And we ended up coming to Australia to do the Arise program. And that was a big shift because, me working full-time investment banking, and him as well, we're working big hours. Coming to Australia, it was such a lifestyle, slow pace. And then going to Arise, it was like a big shift for us. And so and then as part of our sabbatical year, we did Arise. We want to learn more about health, lifestyle medicine, as well as health evangelism. And we wanted to do some volunteer work in Africa. So after that 1 year of hands-on and learning, lots of learning, we came back to our jobs, and I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. It was just really weird. It switched something in my mind. My friend says that I was bitten by the missionary bug. And once you kind of do something like that, you never go back. My friends back home and my clients, people that used to work with me, they said that I came to Australia and became a hippie. So they're like, oh, Camila, you just became a hippie, and they think I'm a hippie now. So it was a big change, but it was really part of, like, I think it was part of us, like Joseph and I starting our lives together, and deep in our hearts, we spend a lot of time. I spent 10 years in the financial markets, and I was always investing in assets that, kind of getting people to make money and making money. And that's not a bad thing, because money can be important to fund many things, build many things. But at the same time, I felt like I wanted to be part of something that I was personally involved in the grassroots and making an impact. And so I wanted to do something that I was like doing more of that than, so we like to say that we came from investing in assets that are earthly to invest in assets that can have the potential to be eternal, which is people. So we love to learn with people, to have a journey with people, and to enjoy life with people. And I think that God has put us in Australia because I think Australia is a little piece of heaven. And when you do that with people and you learn more about what God has meant to us.
Yeah, it's such an amazing story. I guess I'm wondering, like, obviously you've gone from the shift from the financial world to ministry. Where did health come into that? Were you already living quite healthy lives back in Brazil, or was that something that kind of came up as you were in Australia as well?
That's a good question. So my mother actually became a dentist. We come from a Japanese background. I'm 25% Japanese, and so in my mother grew up with a big Buddhist sort of lifestyle, and so they were always sort of inclined to health, at least from my Japanese family perspective. But at the same time, she was passionate about health, and she ended up becoming a Seventh-day Adventist because of the health message, because she thought it was beautiful how people really take care of their bodies as a temple of Holy Spirit, and how the families were doing life together. And so she was really driven, attracted by that. So that was a big thing. I grew up very mindful of being healthy and happy, and really trying to do the best we can with our lives, with the body that we got, and spending a lot of times outdoor. And so all of that concept of holistic health. And when I went to New York to study, I did university there in New York at a university. So I kind of left. It's not that I abandoned that good lifestyle, but student, I was at the time, I'm going to give it away, but it was probably almost 20 years ago. Yes, I'm getting old. So yeah, like 15, 18 years ago, there was not a lot of healthy options for if you didn't have a lot of money, especially as students. Like I remember eating the fast food, Taco Bell and Wendy's, all of those things that you try to survive as a student. So I ended up just kind of eating everything and not getting much sleep, not spending a lot of outdoor time. And so that was a time where my health sort of suffered a bit, and I really saw the consequences. And it was that space of like 4 years university plus 4 or 5 years working. So at the end of that 10 years there, I was really feeling like low energy. My hormones as a young lady was all over the place. I had terrible pain, period pain, and so my cycle was all over the place. And I just felt like, look, I'm too young to feel that flat, in energy. I was working hard as well. So I realized that I had sort of kind of lost my way into the lifestyle, and that was costing me a bit. So really on my late 20s is when I started going back. And because of my work, I was traveling a lot. And so I was always passionate about food and eating on all these sort of nice, fancy places. And so I always thought, oh, how can you make food that is healthy, that looks good, that tastes good, and that is attractive? And so on my sabbatical year that I just mentioned to you that we did, I went and did a plant-based chef professional course. And I did that because I was passionate about food, but it really because also when I came to Australia and I started doing cooking demonstrations as part of our health ministries, I thought it was really important to have a little bit more of a professional training background, something that I could get some credibility from. And so I continued studying and more plant-based chef and other things. So that's kind of how it more merged into health and lifestyle. And so my husband and I are really passionate about learning. We've done a lot of different courses in that area of not only eating, but lifestyle as medicine. And that's pretty much the sort of background. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think a lot of people could relate to that, being busy, being stressed, or not being able to afford healthy food, and having that, patch in their lives where they're like, oh, this is not working for me. So it's great that you've got that. It's not like you've always been this health warrior. You can relate to the struggles that some of us might experience, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to hear more of your journey as we go, but I'd like to switch gears a little bit to the food pharmacy that we mentioned, this cafe in Newcastle. We've got our recent record. This is coming out, this Sabbath with the food pharmacy.
Oh, nice.
Right there on the front
I
cover.
hadn't seen it. It looks really good.
Yeah, this Sabbath. So this is a sneak peek for you viewers who are checking this out. It's going to come out. And the story's just gone up on our website, so we'll share the link as well in the chat, so you guys can all check that out. But tell us a little bit about the food pharmacy for a start, and how that is giving convenient and healthy food principles to people who might be rushed, who might be going about their daily lives. How is food pharmacy serving the population in Newcastle there?
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. I think the food pharmacy really was from this dream of making healthy food accessible, delicious, and beautiful. So we really wanted to be the food to be attractive, but also not only for people to buy the food at the cafe, but to be able to learn how to prepare the foods if they wanted to make it home, to learn where they get the ingredients from, and even to be able to provide that education. So food pharmacy, it's more than a cafe. It's more like a food hub. And we call food pharmacy because we wanted to bring that concept. Like when you go, we are at a clinic, a health clinic at Tune, which is it's an integrative medical center. So the whole idea is when people came in to see a GP or to see a dietitian, naturopath, whatever professional that they come to see, and they hear from the professionals, you should have less of these or more of that. And, when you visit the doctor, it's not a good thing if you're being told, you're drinking too much coffee or you're having too much gluten and all of that. You're going to think, what am I going to do? Like if you hear from your doctor, you got to stop drinking alcohol. And people will sometimes they feel very down when they come from that kind of visit. And they're used to go to the pharmacy and get the prescription filled with the medication that I'm going to have. So the idea of food pharmacy is that we work very closely with the professionals, and so that they can prescribe our foods, our courses. So like I said, it's more than a cafe. We run health programs in the evenings, and we also do lifestyle coaching. We partner with a couple of like a charity in Newcastle. We partner with other health professionals in clinics to be able to service their customers as well. And we have so they can become not only a customer, but really a partner to us. So the idea is to have this community that is everyone's learning together, everyone's doing a journey together and sharing from their learnings and their experience. So we have not only the concept of prescribing or like filling out prescription of lifestyle to people, but we also have clubs that people have, like there's a Healing Kitchen cooking club that people can attend. So they learn how to cook the things that we make in the shop. And then we have a garden, so people can come and learn how to plant the things that we use and see how we can use the compost, the scraps of the foods to go into the soil. So it's very educational as well as experiential. And that's kind of what we're trying to bring to the community. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's answers the question completely, but that's the idea, the concept.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a, it's kind of what we titled this video, was like a holistic approach to health. So it's like you're not just providing them with food, but you're providing them with like opportunities to connect with people and to learn how to make this themselves. Like it's such a fulfilling kind of experience going there. There is this podcast that I often listen to. It's called How I Built This, and it often talks about or the interviewer asks these big companies or these restaurants or things that are kind of worldwide known, the story of how they started. And so I know that you had a big part to play in the starting of Food Pharmacy. Did that come from like your testimony experience, or what was the journey of that?
Yeah, that definitely came from that. I feel like when we arrived in Newcastle, we spent a lot of time, and we still do, with our community, and just trying to understand how our neighbors and the people living in Newcastle think, what are the areas of interest to them. And as coming from a church perspective, we felt like people, they're very guarded to talk about their spiritual lives or their spiritual beliefs or anything really, if you're coming from a religious aspect, because they feel like religion can divide people, and some of them have had a trauma or a bad experience with religious people, so they can become very guarded. So one of the things that we noticed is that people were very keen to talk about journey and having and sharing a journey of well-being together. And so when we had these kind of conversations with our friends, they were really actually open to even open up about their spirituality, about their beliefs, and they were open to listen to our journey as well and our beliefs. So we thought, look, why won't we, if we're really interested in learning and blessing this community, why won't we be able to create that experience so that we can exchange values? Yeah.
Just to drill down into the name a little bit. So some people may not have heard the concept that food is medicine. I remember from the article that we published that phrase, and I think there's a cookbook also of the same name. But the idea that it's a food pharmacy, I just want to go back to that. The doctors and the practitioners can prescribe certain even meals or offerings that you have at your cafe that will help address certain health issues. Can you speak to that a little bit more for someone who might not be familiar with the concept that food is medicine or food can heal? How does that even work? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, so the very concept that food can be medicine or food as medicine. So you mentioned the book Food as Medicine by Dr. Sue Redd, which is an amazing dietitian that it's been one of the mentors that we look up to, and she's definitely contributed to my experience with food. So the concept food as medicine, I think it's always been around. It's just that we kind of have a name for it now. We know, like growing up, we've always had the grandma sort of like, oh, if you're feeling sick, you should have this, you should have that, or like this tea, or like the little soup. So the reality of food is that food builds people, builds communities, culture, but it's really much what goes into your body. It's like your fuel to the body. So if everything that you eat or that you drink, it will affect you, whether it's your health physically or mentally, emotionally. So the concept of food as medicine is to kind of, can you focus, or what are the foods that are considered healing? And so now, because of the scientific research has grown a lot in this area in the last 20 years or so, we recognize that foods that are basically plants, eating more, a bigger quantity of plant-based foods, that impacts health. Because, for example, we now are more familiar with the concept of having a gut, a microbiome. So we know that we have more bacteria than cells in our bodies. And that impacts, and why? Because the bacteria that are part of our bodies, that is kind of like regimenting how we function, they love fiber. And fiber is found in plants. You don't find fiber in anything else other than plants that you're eating. So if you want it to function well, you want the bacteria or these microbes to be happy and function well, it just makes sense that you need to eat a lot of fiber. So that's the concept. Like, what are the things that you can eat to get your body to thrive? And I think that we always knew instinctively what made our bodies thrive. And like you said, Jared, we are so busy, and we end up sort of like eating the canned things a lot, or the processed foods. And what happens is, unfortunately, with the whole process of refining foods or making food more readily available for us, busy people, we lose a lot of these fibers. So I think that there's been a revolution, and in a certain way, a evolution about human technology and productivity, and we're connected, wired connected and internet, but at the same time we have lost a little bit of the sense of real food that has got fiber and has got what the fuel that our body needs. So it's really going back to roots and having more foods that are less processed, that they're more intact, they're packaged with what our body needs, and try to consume that as much as possible.
So good. I think for people who are maybe far from a plant-based diet or who eat a lot of Taco Bell or junk food, the idea that food has a big impact on our like mental health is actually kind of a daunting thing, because it means there's a lot of change that has to happen. I actually find it quite exciting, because I think it's like, now that you know that food can positively affect you, it's like, wow, what can I eat that's going to make me happier? But yeah, I know that you at Food Pharmacy, like obviously you're called Food Pharmacy, but you often use the term sozo in like your websites and your mission. And I know that that's a Greek word, and I know what it means, but can you just expand on that when you say like what is like a sozo health enterprise, as you would say?
Yes. So I actually so when I joined the North New South Wales as a health director, I had this thought of creating a company that would be able to service people from our community as well as our members and our churches with lifestyle medicine services, like consulting services, or like we started really with the idea of having health retreats, pop-up health retreats. And so I guess because my mind works in a very entrepreneur way, so I thought, why don't we start this company, and that we're going to be served, like it's going to be a lifestyle medicine arm of the conference. And when we started that, the idea was to really pilot certain things that for the community, especially our churches, to see, wow, this is really cool, we can do that, and to inspire people to do that. So we did the health retreats, which we're still running under Sozo, and we're, for example, Food Pharmacy is also under Sozo. We have a few other businesses and other arms that we've starting off under Sozo, like the Sozo Farm. We're starting a farm that produces like an eco forest that produces food, as well as a classroom for people to learn how to do organic and ecological farming. So the word sozo, it's a Greek word in the Bible, in the New Testament, that appears basically in few instances when Jesus gives somebody healing. And it means complete healing, but it's this sense of complete healing that is sort of like almost like divine, and it's almost like it's kind of like an ongoing thing. So it's almost like it's complete in a sense that it's done, like it's all done. And but it was interesting because it only came when it was Jesus giving the healing. So oftentimes the word healing appears as a different word when people were just saying, please heal me. And so I feel like I love that word, and that's why we chose sozo, because it helps people to understand that what we offer as lifestyle medicine, and that's what Jared was mentioning, it's becoming a big thing, but really people in many senses, they're looking for something more than that. And that's what now science is calling meaning and purpose. And we know that, even though people say, oh, it's all about the why, yes, it's true, the why is very important, but it's really about the who. Like, if you don't know who you are or who God is and how God sees you, it's really hard for you to see the why. I've seen so many people, like you're saying, like people are busy, they are having like we all have hardships, and people are having like this mental health issues, like whether you're anxiety or depression, and it's really hard when people are down in the weeds of depression to get them to do a lifestyle change. Why? Because sometimes they just don't have the motivation, there's no why there. And even if you try to get them to see the why, they won't be able to see, because what they really need at that moment is the who. They need to see Jesus. And sometimes they will see Jesus through you as a person trying to help them. And they need to see who they are, and that they're precious for God, and they're precious for their community. And, so I think that that's the main thing for us, the food is an important aspect, but it's just the means, it's not the end. The end goal is to make an impact and to see transformation in people's lives. And just like food was a big thing for me, like I remember when I was having, like when I was low energy, I just didn't have the energy or the desire to pray or even to go to church or to, I remember I didn't even want to see friends. Like I was going work and doing things that I had to do, and that was it. No energy for anything. And I think that our goal is to, and even with this, Sozo as the conference sort of health services, is to be able to give people an opportunity to experience that complete healing and to hopefully inspire people that no matter where you are in your journey, that you can get started and hopefully find someone that can walk along with you, because that's something that science has been able to show this to us now, that when you have a community to support you, you're most likely to succeed in your lifestyle changes and interventions, and you're most likely to grow as a human and in your purpose and feel contentment.
I have a bit of a two-part question, Camilla, for you.
By the way, are you jealous that I'm drinking a food pharmacy chai latte? It's an iced chai.
What does she have?
And it's totally okay to have at 4:30 because it's caffeine free. It's with the base is rooibos. It's amazing chai, and it's served with a beautiful ice cream. So you've got to come here live to in person. I will definitely I'm giving you right now a free voucher for you both to come here and join one of these. Sorry, Jared, didn't mean to cut you off, but it's just I don't want to be rude by drinking and not saying anything.
You've sold me. When we read the article, many of us in the office were saying we have to get up to Newcastle and try this out. Partly related, your drink is partly related to my next question, because I was going to say you're a cafe. In French, cafe and coffee are synonymous, but you don't have caffeinated cafe or coffee. You don't have caffeine in any of your coffees. And some people might think, well, that's not a viable business model. How can you run a cafe without coffee? And my other question was around, I guess, cost. A lot of people have a barrier to say eating plant-based is more expensive. It's too hard. It's not accessible. So I'm just wondering how's the business going in terms of, is it affordable and accessible? Are there different ranges of options for people to buy the food there? And how do you run a coffee-free cafe or a decaf cafe? How does that work?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. I love that question because that was a big thing. Like before we got started, Jared, like even 3 years before we opened, when we were planning, I remember people saying, that's crazy. Like, how are you going to have a cafe that doesn't have any coffee? Or at least like the coffee, And this was a big thing for us. We were not going to have any coffee unless we were able to give the best coffee possible. So one of the research that we done in the beginning is like, how can we get the same exact taste experience of a artisanal coffee that is like delicious? And one of the things that I found out, and I was actually quite surprised, is that caffeine is tasteless. So the fact that caffeine is tasteless, it gave me this hope that I could deliver a coffee that it was just like any other coffee, but didn't have the caffeine on. And it's so interesting. And it's an example of how sometimes caffeine, or like how people feel about coffee, it's very psychological. Because I would say that probably 70% of the people that come to our cafe don't realize the coffee is decaf, or it's written there, but people just come and they order the coffee and they have the coffee. And a lot of them, we had so many of, there's something different about this coffee. I feel so good. I go to my class and my mind is so clear. And we're like, okay. And there were some people like, oh, I just get the pick me up. This coffee is the best. I come here every day. And then there have been customers that found out that there was no caffeine after 3 or 4 months of them coming, like daily, and they couldn't believe it. And they were actually very happy because they're like, I'm trying to cut down my caffeine, and I'm only down to 2 a day, one in my house in the morning and one here when I come in. And then when they broke the news, they were like, really? And they were so happy, because I think that coffee is become a cultural thing. So people wanted to have a coffee any time of the day with a little piece of cake, and it's like a social thing more than just the caffeine. And so, number one, we're very proud of our coffee. It's organic. It's naturally decaffeinated with water only, and it's water from the mountains. So it's completely organic as well. And because of all of these processes, it allows the taste to be amazing. And it's locally roasted as well. So it's roasted here nearby by a small roaster. So he really cares for how the coffee is roasted. And those makes a difference. Like when you usually go to a cafe and you order a decaf, they're not going to be grinding fresh for you. They're usually going to be in a little container that is sitting there for how long, God knows. So the idea is to provide that fresh coffee taste. And I've had a lot of people that are very, they would tell me if it was different, but they come here and they said they've never tasted any decaf that tasted exactly like coffee like they've done here. So I'm definitely challenging people to come here and try. And so that was that. I believe that we're probably the very first cafe without caffeine in Australia. I dare to say that. I've never heard of any cafe that have absolutely no caffeine. The idea, it's not only the coffee, none of our drinks have caffeine. And it's basically, we want it to be a healing cafe. So not only the food, but the drinks are medicine as well. And we know that, yeah, caffeine has its benefits, but it also has its pros and cons, so to speak. So we wanted to make sure that we had a coffee that was delicious, but without the cons, just the pros. So that's number one. In terms of viability for the business, we were very surprised because coffee is the number one sell from our business. So it is the item that we sell the most, which is another surprise if you think of like, oh, a decaf. So it is the number one item that we sell. We also I actually get more people being cranky about not having dairy, not having milk on their coffee than having no caffeine, surprising enough. But they're usually very happy when they try the Sanitarium or the oat milk, which we usually say, look, if you've never had a non-dairy milk, why want to try with the oat? And we get the alternative in oat milk, and people usually love that. In terms of sustainability of the business, look, we were again surprised of how much we were selling. And at first we thought, oh, are we going to be expensive? But we've done a research around the area here, especially now after COVID and all of the things, the price of ingredients have gone up, especially with the floods and fires. Everything impacts the costing of things. And we are actually on the lower cost in terms of our prices compared to our competitors around, especially when you look into the value of food, how much food you get, what you get. So we're very competitive. And we also try to have a price range that goes, like we have things that go from $3 all the way to $20, or $25. So that's sort of a big range of products and price that we try to provide. And when it comes to eating plant-based, I think it's more of a myth that is more expensive. It can become expensive if you're buying packaged foods. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you're eating, like, for example, for people that come to eat at Food Pharmacy, we have some single people that come every day that work around here, but most people don't come every day because anytime, if you go eat out, it's going to cost you more. But the whole idea is, for example, if you buy a piece of steak and when you cook it, does it get smaller or bigger?
Smaller.
That's a question. It's smaller. Yes,
I've
it
never
gets
cooked
smaller.
a piece of steak, so.
Oh, you haven't cooked. Okay, no, but yeah, normally, and the same thing with like milk. If you're how much milk do you need to make cheese? A lot. So actually, the concept of animal foods, it's like more you pay for X, but then you're really consuming much smaller. Whereas when you think about like the equivalent of a steak in a plant, world, which is high in protein, like the beans and the legumes. So when you think of chickpeas or beans, you actually buy a kilo. When you cook, it becomes 2 kilos. So it's more of, you know, what you eat. And the other thing I was going to say is I feel like, especially in Australia, people don't eat a lot of beans or legumes. And when they do, they kind of overdo on the lentils. It's like lentils as anything. You know, there was a restaurant in Sydney that I love the name, lentils anything. So I think that's very important when people are eating a plant-based diet or even a vegan diet, that they're doing it healthy and that they're having a good amount. And if they look for the legumes as the primary sort of source of protein, but also as a main for their meals, it's not going to be expensive, because they will basically pay for 1 kilo of whatever legumes and they will get 2 kilos once they add water and cook. And so I'm happy. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm happy to help people to cook plant-based that costs less and give you more for your buck. So we even have a club here that we call plant-based on the budget. So try to kind of buy the, you know, ready accessible things and make it a big meal out of it.
Awesome. We have someone comment here. They're asking what the brand of the decaf coffee is.
Yes, of course. Hi, Jeremy. So it's called the Little Earth Roasters that we use. I will get it on the internet now and post the link here for you, if that's helpful. And we sell here as well. So if people, this guy, he only sells wholesale, but we're happy to sell if it's we sell retail here as well on our shop.
You mentioned before that often people will go overdose on legumes and things, and that just because people have chosen like a vegan diet doesn't necessarily mean that they've chosen a healthy one. Because I think when people initially go vegan, that a lot of people do have like negative side effects. But I think another thing is that people struggle to find like excitement in it. Like they don't really know what to make. They don't know what to eat. And what I find interesting about, I guess, your background is that you're from Brazil. But you also have Japanese, Polish, and Spanish ancestry, I believe. And so you've got quite a mix of things going on there. And so I guess what I'm asking is, like, I think what we see at Food Pharmacy is quite a creative take on plant-based foods, because you brought all of that together. And so how can people kind of start to think more creatively about food, and where can they go? What can they do if they just don't know where to start?
That's a great question. So when you're thinking about plants, there's this variety of world that comes about, because every single culinary, like authentic culinary around the world, will have actually a predominantly, like most culinaries around the world are predominantly plant-based. And it's just because like when we get used to have like that meat or even like cheese, and then we kind of feel like we need to put that in every meal. But it's getting out there and trying one thing at a time. Like otherwise it can be quite overwhelming. But I would say start with one cuisine that you would be curious about and try to find what are the meals in that cuisine that you could explore. So for example, as a Brazilian, I wanted to bring a Brazilian bowl into the Food Pharmacy. And there's so many things that you could, you know, I think the internet is a beautiful place, because you can access these days any recipe from anywhere around the world. So I think it's good to see what are the types of recipes or the culinaries that you enjoy. One thing is like when people go out to eat, they don't realize that they're not only spending more money, but a lot of the times the food has got some extra fats, extra sugars, because just to kind of keep, you know, the food interesting, a lot of the restaurants add a lot of oils and sweeteners into the food. And so I feel like even if you get your preference, like your favorite restaurant, and you think, try to make your favorite meal, but cooking yourself at home. We have customers at Food Pharmacy that sends me photos sometimes. There was a guy last week, he's like, look, I made your version of Brazilian bowl and my wife loved it. And I love when they do that, because he went, and researched, and he went online and just posted, Brazilian feijoada, and then he tried to make it. I would say try to have foods that are freshly available. And again, coming to the cost, like when you go to a supermarket, I always look for the food that costs less than $4 a kilo first. I'm like, okay, this is going to be my bulk. And then so I pick everything. And within fruits and vegetables, there's so many that cost. And then my next bucket's like, what costs less than $10? And that's my sort of like next layer. And you'll be surprised of how much variety you can get access to. And one of the things that I think it's quite interesting, at least I enjoy, I buy those foods first. So like what's the, so like fruits and vegetables that are more readily affordable and available, I buy them. And then I always pick a legume for the week. So like chickpeas or black beans or red beans, like there's so many once you look into what is there. If you don't have time, you can buy them in tins. That's fine. Sometimes I like to cook my own. And then I'll pick my grain, my whole grain. So it could be like a brown rice or a buckwheat or something. So once I have that, then I can think of like, okay, maybe I'll search some recipes online that have those ingredients. And I think that's the best way, because if you just look for recipes online and you have to kind of resource all the ingredients, it could be costly, but also overwhelming. So I would start with the very simple things and try not to use too many ingredients. Love to point out people to our website, and also wanting to share that in January, we're launching a new website for Sozo Health. So currently there's a website, sozohealth.com.au, but it's kind of under construction and renovation at the moment. And we're going to be launching, and we're going to be offering free, not only recipes, but free ideas of how can you make your foods easier, more affordable, and with more plants, and also ideas for potlucks. So we want to like do a how do you say, like a renovation or a big redo on the potluck culture in our church, in our communities, to make it more vibrant, colorful, and fun.
And I'm sure healthy as well, because sometimes there can be some interesting dishes show up at potluck events.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, and I think people are looking for more of that, right, Jared? Like,
Yes.
I just came in today. Today I was at the Avondale University, and we just did a big event to showcase to the students what the food is going to be like next year. And when we did a lot of tastings with the students on like trying and telling us what they like, consistently the highest feedback or the highest grades was for the fresh salads and like the colorful salads. And because they're looking for fresh, they're looking
Healthy,
for
yeah.
color,
Yeah.
yes, and flavor.
And that's great. Hey, we're running quickly out of time, Camilla, but it's been great to have you on with us. We often finish Record Live with a practical sort of tip, and you've given us some practical, I guess, shopping / overhauling our menu for the week. But what's one thing, someone's watching this and they're like, want to make a step in the right direction of their health? One thing that they can practically start with to give that. Give us something in a nutshell.
Okay, so the one thing that I would say is to try to have less processed foods. When I say processed foods, is things that come on a package, and try to have more whole foods. Whole foods means the food as grown. So if you start by doing that, it's going to be a long way already. So for example, you start having sugary drinks like juices, for example, or even candy or whatever. Try to have, if you're craving some sweet, instead of saying, no, I cannot have any sweets, well, maybe have a mango season's coming up and it's a sweet and nice, or have a strawberry. And so having whole fruits instead of having snack fruits, for example, or like juices, and trying to have foods that you cook yourself or somebody cooks for you as fresh as possible. So that would be my tip, because you're going to get more energy, more pleasure when you're eating, and healthier.
Amazing. Well, thank you for the wealth of information that you've given us today, Camilla. We really appreciate it and we love what you're doing. And we can't wait to come and get our free meal.
Well, you already got your free meal. That's right.
For anyone watching, Food Pharmacy is down in Newcastle, correct?
Yes, so we are right in Cardiff. So about 5 minutes from Warners Bay. It's we're waiting for you. We'd love to come and to see. And now, if you're coming and you bring a new friend until the end of the month, you get a free drink, a free latte. So anyone that comes and bring a new friend gets a free drink. So take advantage of that until the end of the month.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Camilla. It was awesome to have you on. As for everyone else, we will see you next week for another episode of Record Live.